Welcome back. At a time when experts have raised many concerns over the impact of social media on children, Australian government has now said that it will introduce world-leading legislation to ban children under the age of 16 from social media. In fact, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said that the proposed laws were aimed at mitigating the harm that social media was inflicting on Australian children. He said, and I quote, "This one is for mums and dads. They, like me, are worried about the safety of our kids online. I want Australian families to know that the government has your back." That's what he said. Now, many countries have taken steps in the last few years to regulate social media. Social media has been both a boon and a curse for children, especially after COVID-19. Most studies have moved online. A lot of studies have moved online, increasing the exposure of children to the digital space. However, if not controlled, social media can be a dark space for children, exposing them to disturbing things. So the big question here is, should children be barred from social media? Is that the right thing to do? From poor self-esteem to cyberbullying, children are often exposed to the dark side of social media. So how can one prevent that? Should there be regulation? Should there be more blocking? Does regulation even work at a time when tech has a workaround for everything? How can we keep our young people safe? That is the question we will ask today, and we want you to tell us what your views on this are. We of course have Harpreet Suri, a mom influencer, joining us. But first, let's listen to what the Australian Prime Minister said today.
Social media is doing harm to our kids, and I'm calling time on it. I've spoken to thousands of parents, grandparents, aunties and uncles. They, like me, are worried sick about the safety of our kids online. And I want Australian parents and families to know that the government has your back. I want parents to be able to say, "Sorry, mate, it's against the law for me to get you to do this." Now, government's proposed age is 16. That decision was made in Cabinet on Monday.
Harpreet Suri, who's a mom influencer, joins us. Thank you, Harpreet, for speaking to NDTV. You know the digital space, and you've been here as an influencer, also as part of your corporate role. Tell us, blocking social media for children, is that the right thing to do? Is that even possible, considering that tech has a workaround for everything? And children are very smart these days. They have proxy accounts, and of course, one account to show their parents, especially when it comes to social media. How do you view this, this whole decision by the Australian government, and do you think that this will also pave the way for more regulation in other countries?
So first of all, I want to say that what an amazing move. I was, reading up on it, and how just one, they had this case of bullying, and what a step the government has taken. You know how our population is so big, hum to ye sab sochte, I don't know how many years would pass. So first of all, I am really impressed, and so much, my congratulations to the government there that they took this step. Now coming to, is it even possible? In a country like ours, I feel it gets tough, but what is the way out? We as parents have been telling our children to, I tell my children, it's my job. Social media is a career that I've opted for. But I strongly feel that, yes, under 16 is not a great idea. I see my daughter, I see my son. They have, as much as I try, they are glued on to it. Their reels and shorts, they're studying through this now. I was traveling recently, and my daughter had, as much as I try and control, imagine, she knew exactly everything was going on with so many YouTubers. What are they launching? Some I was not even appreciating. But imagine, after having so much parental control, my daughter's so much exposed to it. She's talking to other kids in her school. My son is a teenager. I was asking him something today. He said, Mom, it's VPN and there are proxies. I'm so glad he spoke to me honestly about it. But it is scary. At a larger scale, it's very scary what all they are exposed to. So yes, somewhere down the line, we will have to have these strict rules for our children. Okay. And government has to intervene, I think, now.
Harpreet, do you think, what kind of role do you think educational institutes can also play? What is the role of the school in this? Because, I was talking to a colleague of mine. There are children who don't want to burst crackers now because, the school tells them that, there is pollution in the city. So there's a lot of education, there's a lot of awareness that children get from schools, even when it comes to social conduct, moral conduct. So what is the role of schools that you perceive here?
You mean to say in terms of social media or otherwise schools?
In terms of social media, do you think that schools can also tell children that there needs to be limited interaction when it comes to social media? And also, the problem is with cyberbullying and the kind of misogynistic content that social media is has sometimes, and children get exposed to it. What kind of role do you see schools playing in this?
They do, and both my children, their schools have an extremely important role. They keep sending us regular mails, updates, telling us, they have these school online portals now where all information is coming. So they tell us they don't need YouTube as such to study. All the links, all the stories, all the work that they do online in school, everything is updated on their ISAMs and whatever portals that they're using. And school is also telling these children pros and cons very, very regularly. Both my kids, my daughter's just 8, imagine, in grade 3, and my son is a teenager in grade 9th. They both have their individual social media hazard classes. How do you say? How do I explain? The schools are so active, more than maybe as parents, because they see the implications in school and more than we see at home, because all the kids are together. There's bullying,
Right.
there's putting people down, social media image, how these kids are creating. School has a very important role to play, and they are, I think, doing their best. Let's give them this credit.
Harpreet, please, stay on with us. We also have our first caller with us, Captain Jakpal from Rohtak. Mr. Rohtak, Australia is one of the few countries, in fact, it's become the first country to introduce a stringent law. It has said that it will be banning social media for children below the age of 16. What kind of experience do you see, do you have when it comes to families around you or your own family? Do you think that there is a certain kind of impact that social media has had on children? And do you think that it is time for regulation?
Thanks for my number being on your show. You see, mainly thing that has happened to the kids is they have a drooping shoulder and they do not have eyesight 6 by 6. They go to sleep after they are exhausted mentally, not physically. So even if they are required to do their homework on the school, etc., they must get a printout. Kids should be away from the mobile, not from the social media. They should be busy with physical activities, playing games with the grandmother and mother, and then physical exercise. Anything less than this is an eyewash. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Captain Jakpal, for joining us. We also have Dr. Uma Bhattacharya joining us from Bhopal. Thank you for speaking to NDTV, for calling us. What are your views when it comes to a ban on social media for children under the age of 16? That is what Australia has decided. Do you also feel that the Indian government, for that matter, should also have some sort of regulation when it comes to social media use for children?
Yeah, thanks for having me on this in-call show. So I am a psychiatrist and I'm also the president of Central Psychiatric Society of Indian Psychiatric Society. So, children getting exposed to too much of screen time, social media and too much of input, it harms them more than doing good, because children are incapable of putting self-regulation. If they could put in self-regulation, nothing like it. But there is also behavior of parents as well, because when kids see their parents on phones and on gadgets, so they also emulate the same behavior. So I think regulation is must, and definitely social media like Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all they should be. The age is of course debatable, till what age they can be allowed to do and at what age they should not be allowed. But definitely regulation is must because of lot of reasons. Number one, children do get addicted to this because and then they stop seeking pleasure from day-to-day other activities, outdoor activities, time with family and friends, real-time conversation. So gradually they become withdrawn from the society, and they are solitary involved with these screens and these gadgets. So it hampers their mental development also and their social skills.
Right.
So education, during COVID, a lot of schools and everything turned on to digital. So for information, it is good, but there must be regulation. Parents are incapable of doing it.
Right.
So I think now it's the role of the government.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya, for those excellent insights. We also have Parambeet Garewal joining us from Chandigarh. Thank you for speaking to us. Parambeet, tell us, what has your experience been like when it comes to usage of social media on children? Because there is a section, like for instance, I don't believe that a blanket ban will actually work, because children will always find a workaround, and there are some pros to social media which also need to be understood. Is there a need to have a balancing act here, or do you think that social media has more negatives to offer to children than positives?
Social media is more like a coin. It has two sides to it. And there are certain benefits which the children derive from it, but I believe the cons are far greater than the benefits. So we need to look at one thing. The children are the biggest pressure houses, people who can pressurize their parents. So they get their parents to do whatever they feel like. So it is very, very important that there is a government regulatory body which is very strict on who goes on social media and who does not. This going on social media becomes a majority part of their lives. You could say almost 30 to 35%. What is ABC talking about me? I'm putting a photograph, I'm doing this. They need to grow up first before they need to venture out into this world. And then this is the introduction towards all the wrong things in life. There are people who derive the better things also as well, but unfortunately, the children gravitate towards what is not right. So it is very, very important. I am of the opinion that there should be a regulatory body and should be very strict in regulating what happens. There are a lot of problems and a lot of issues caused in schools by social media, children operating them in classes 4th, classes 5th, classes 6th onwards. And there needs to be very strict control.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Garewal, for those excellent inputs. We also have Srinivasan joining us. Mr. Srinivasan, the earlier caller was talking about how children these days spend a lot of time on social media. They need to grow up first, and there's a lot on social media that basically deprives them from the actual good things in life, the real things in life, the physical world. What kind of experience have you had, sir, when it comes to children around you? Do you think that social media has more negatives and it's time to at least regulate it so that children get only the best from social media?
The children are not going and playing out at all. Now everybody hooked to the mobile and not even laptop. They are hooking to mobile. They see all sorts of things which is not at all required for the kids. At least we have to curtail this till their 12th year or 15th year. We have to control this. But how we have to control, it's a very big question. Where not only we cannot blame only the kids, the parents. The parents, if they want, they have any work, they give the mobile to the kids and then they put a YouTube or some short stories or anything else. They are doing all those things. The parents also to be blamed here. They are the first culprit. Then only the kids. They see the parents how they work, how they see throughout the day and then day out. They lie on the mobile. So these people also pick up that they are not going out. They are not no sunlight, no fresh air. Nothing. But the basic thing is how we have to regulate this, how to control this.
Srinivasan for joining us. Harpreet, you heard all of them speaking. In fact, they say that children are not going out to play. They need to grow up first. They need to enjoy good things in life. Do you think that is a primary worry? Because, social media also gives you a sense of illusionary world, and children, both male and female children, are at the risk of looking at this world with a sense of wonder and thinking that everything is either too good or too bad. Do you think that is the kind of impact that social media can have on the mental health of young adults?
It does. Let's be honest about it. I do this day in, day out, and I feel there is a make-believe world that kids get into. I remember when I was younger, my father had always told me, until it's dark outside, you're not coming back. You have to play. I do it with my children now. But I know if given a choice, they would love to get on a Zoom call with their friends, or they would want to see shorts. My daughter was, recently enjoying shorts a lot. You leave aside my daughter. I'll talk about myself. I have felt my attention span has gone down. I'm now regulating myself. I'll start with myself. Why should I just get into the kids? And all of us elders, my mother, my mother-in-law, I see people around. We've got so used to it. We need to first self-regulate ourselves and then get on to our children also. I do a lot of work with Meta, and they have so many parental control. They have so many things, all new things coming up to make sure that children are not affected, or children under 16, and many, many other controls that they are doing. Parents are doing, but you know how these kids just overpower us. They get emotional. They tell us all these stories and they want the phone from us. They get cranky. What I'm saying is every mother's problem. I think it's time that government does intervene, because see, there's an age for marriage, there's an age for driving. Kuch soch ke rakhi hogi na? So I think there should be also an age regulated for children for social media.
Very nicely said. In fact, I like the fact, Harpreet, that you talked about how your children come and speak to you about whatever they see on social media. I think that is probably the way forward, because there are mixed views here on blocking social media for children. But there's one rallying point, like our guest said, rather than blocking access through bans, we also need to take a balanced approach to ensure that we have children coming back and speaking to us about what they face on social media. I think that is the way forward. We also have Manorama from Gurgaon joining us. Manorama, what has been your experience, ma'am? We've had a lot of mixed views on this platform, but clearly a lot of parents actually feel that the social media has had an impact on social interactions of their children. It has not allowed them to go out, play freely. In fact, it has also impacted their mental health to some extent. But do you think that regulation is the way forward?
I think there is, because otherwise, at home, how much can you control? You know how much they should generally and also the programs that come on social media are not all suitable for the children, and they have access to any sort of program. At the same time, they're wasting their time on, as you said earlier. There's no physical activity outside, not socializing. Those things are far more important than being glued to the mobile. Even little babies sit in front of the mobile and then have their milk or sweets. Makes no sense at all.
Right. Harpreet, also, because you're a mother and you've been talking to your children also, tell us what kind of conversations do these do young children have on social media, and how does a parent end up becoming a friend to their children, especially such young children, so that they also understand that social media is not giving them the kind of support that they actually seek from their parents?
I think it's a make-believe world. I'm extremely grateful. Imagine I'm saying this, that my son is totally off social media. He doesn't like it. I remember I was traveling again recently with him. I wanted to put some pictures up, and I kept telling him, why don't you take this picture and put up? This is a beautiful scenery. He was like, Mom, I'm not interested. I think he has seen this world with me. I do this because as a profession, I said. So my kids understand this world well, and they are not interested. But I know a lot of other kids around me, similar, especially girls, who study with my son or my friends' daughters. They are extremely impressionable with social media. They feel this is how it's going to be. This is the standard of beauty. That's how world functions. And I'm really scared for my daughter, because again, she's a girl and she's growing up and she's watching a lot of it. So I keep explaining both my children that one is reality, one is the real world. I create a real world because that's a profession. But in reality, life looks like this. I have my own struggles, and they see all of it. But I think parents should keep that very open between them and their children. They should come back. So you can't, there's a very thin line between intervening and forcing yourself on your children.
Right.
Because I know initially my son was excited about Instagram, and I used to keep sending him all the reels which showed all the cons of food they ate, or things that you should not be doing on Instagram.
Right.
Kya choice hai yaar fir aur? We can only explain it to them. And the more comfortable we make them, the more friendly we are, they'll open up to us. If you barge in their privacy, they would not like it. If you scold them, they'll not like it. So as a parent, I can only sit down and have a And these conversations are not supposed to be a formal day. These
Okay.
conversations are supposed to be in the flow, where you're just sitting and you're having a chat and then you say it. That, and I was telling my son the other day, I saw a case recently where a teenager was writing crap messages to
Okay.
another friend of mine who came out to be a known person in the family, in the circle. I was telling my son the cons of that what happened, cybercrime got involved and
Okay, so
X,
I think
Y, Z.
conversations is the only way forward. Dhananjayan from Chennai also joins us. He's our next caller. Mr. Dhananjayan, Harpreet is a mom influencer, and she's been talking about how it's important to talk to children and tell them that there's a real world and there's a real world. And conversations are the only way, to ensure that children are not bullied on social media and they actually find it to be a safe space. But what is your view when it comes to Australia putting forward this ban? Do you think other countries should also do something like this?
You're asking me, or we have a caller, right?
Yes, we have a caller. Mr. Dhananjay?
Yes.
Yes, sir. This is the question for you. What are your views on this topic, sir, when it comes to a ban on social media, something like Australia has announced? Do you think something like this can work in other countries as well, specifically in India?
Australia is a very different country. India is it is different locations and different areas of India. Because of this type of social media is very useful to the growing children, but some schedule, that means some schedule to frame the parents. After that, it is very useful that. So that India is a growing nation, it is need to, it is the total of villages are very high, so that we see only for the developed cities and developed peoples, but rural type is very low level, that peoples are very useful to the social media. It is a very good program, madam. Thank you.
Mr. Dhananjayan, for joining us. That's an important point that he makes, that there are also, some very important pros of social media, especially when it comes to rural communities, so it's very clear that building a balanced approach to create age-appropriate spaces, something that Harpreet has also been talking about, is very important. And we also build digital literacy and protect young children from online harm. And, as Harpreet said, we also ensure that we have conversations that are ongoing with them, prevalent conversations, frequent conversations, to ensure that they are on the right path, and especially they feel safe when it comes to social media. Thank you, Harpreet, for joining us. Thank you to all our callers for joining us and pitching in with your views. Time for a short break. More news and updates on the other side.